Welcome to another episode of the Intentional Health for Women podcast. I'm your host, Garrett GQ Query, and I am joined by a good friend, mentor, and just social media connection. Welcome to the show, Natasha.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. It's cool that our relationship started as total strangers online, and to be able to sit and have this conversation, I think is really cool. And like the internet's such a powerful place if you use it for good and to connect with different people. So
Absolutely.
I'm stoked to be here.
Thank you. Yeah. So getting right into this is like, for my audience is like, who are you? And let's start there. Like, who is Natasha Storm? What do you do?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I say this on every podcast when people go through the like, who are you? And introduce yourself. I just find it to be such a strange question.
Okay.
And the reason I find it strange is because when you ask somebody like, who are you? It's like, are you looking for my list of accolades? And are you looking for my resume of what I've done? And like, you know, people are like, I'm a mother, I'm a business owner, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm like a best-selling author, like whatever it is, right? We always go to like, what's your accolades? Or are you asking, what are the things that I value outside of all of my titles? So I'll answer the question regardless of like, what is my list of accolades and where I came from. I used to be an online fitness coach. I had a company called Badass Lovelies. I used to work with women who were over 200 pounds. I was so big on the self-love, be a badass woman, be assertive while not losing your femininity in the process. So that's kind of what Badass Lovelies meant to me and what the mission was of it. And then I started a company called TVAC, where it is morphed into a business consulting / appointment setter company. So we primarily help online fitness coaches and online businesses in the space build out kind of their front end with their marketing, their setter teams and their sales teams, and people who are ultimately looking to create a bigger impact and they don't know what model systems or like team members they need to put in place to be able to do it. So we help them bridge that gap.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I do.
That's awesome. So with that being said, I actually really appreciate that. And I think you know that about me is like, who are you from a values perspective? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. I believe in leaving people better than I found them. I think that summarizes it. It's operating from a place of responsibility. What's responsible to me? What's responsible to like the people around me, the collective success. And I just want to live a good life where I leave people better than I found them. I give more than I take. I do what's right, not what's convenient. And just checks and balances as I grow and go through life and evolve as a person.
Do you feel like that makes people really uncomfortable sometimes?
Which part?
Leaving them better than you found them.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that many of us are used to kindness without a hidden agenda. And we don't have a lot of reference points in the first half of our life that people are kind simply because they want to be and that they'll be consistent with it. You might be kind to me for a season, or if I fit into this box, or if I round off the jagged edges and maybe I don't show you all of me. And when somebody shows up in your life and you are loving and you are consistent with who you say you are and you're very clear about that and you maintain that, it totally freaks people out. Because it feels like there's a hidden agenda. I'm waiting for the shoe to drop.
Yeah. Especially if you do it, in my experience, like if you do it from like a perspective of like, hey, like maybe you date for a minute and it's like romantically related. And if things like end amicably and you still show up for them and you're like, hey, I like you as a person, as a human, and I care about you. And just because this didn't work out doesn't mean that I can't continue to care for you. And that really freaks some people out. Like they're just like, why? What are you doing? Why are you here? Because they, like you said, there's no hidden agenda. So it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think it's very uncomfortable. I also think that exact fear is the reason that we don't have close, deep relationships with people, because we self-sabotage them. We put up walls where there should be doors with people when they are kind and they are consistent. And I think a lot of people, they mean well, but we don't have the emotional capacity to be consistently rejected by someone else. So I'll give you an example. Let's say someone's in a relationship with me and they are very kind to me. They're honest. They tell the truth. They don't fight with me. Open communication. It's you and me versus the problem, not me versus you. And they very much show up consistently in that way. At some point, if I continuously push back or I do things that just continue to put up walls between me and that person might not have the capacity to continue to go through that for an extended period of time. And I think having that capacity is like very rare. So we end up losing relationships, not because they didn't want to be there, but because you never let somebody in. And somebody eventually gets tired and they're like, okay, I can lead a horse to water, but I can't force it to drink.
Yep. 100%. Absolutely. So like I said, before we like really kind of started this episode and in something that I wanted to get your experience on given, and I don't know the answer to this question. Like I do know enough about you. Like I've consumed enough about your content, chatted back and forth enough, and we've had the opportunity to meet in person. But I know like you've talked about this a lot in your content is approaching business from a place of like, fuck you energy, and it's jet fuel and it can get you real far, real fast.
Yeah.
As a man who has gone through a lot in his life and then has taken the opportunity the last 2 years to go through therapy, expand on like my faith and grow in that way and really like surround myself with a good group of men. I've had some really like unique opportunities in dating where like I've met some really powerful women like that are doing some really incredible and really big things, but had the unique experience of noticing like seemingly subconscious behaviors of like they were getting to the point of like burnout and they maybe consciously didn't recognize it yet, or maybe they did, but were in denial. And I'm curious if like you've experienced that yourself, because I know like watching you over the last couple of years, like you've definitely evolved. And I feel like there's definitely some things that I've picked up along the way that I feel like maybe vibe with what I'm saying. And so the floor is yours.
Yeah, I witness it a lot. So I grew up in that type of energy and lived the majority of my life from a place of fuck you energy. Everything was about proving someone wrong, feeding my ego, like just deep inadequacy, right? And deep insecurity, which fueled me for a really long time until it burnt me out. And then I was at a crossroads in my life and I had to make a different decision. Since then, being a business owner who is in a position of like consulting and very much like a mentorship and leadership role of like how I build businesses and like what I do in the marketplace, for an example, I attract people now who are where I was 2.5 years ago. And they come in, their business is on fire. They've been running one way for a long time. They're tired, they're burnt out, they're resentful. And a common pattern that I notice is that we will go to such an extreme for so long to hit arbitrary targets and numbers and more, and we will sacrifice everything in order to build something. And then a moment happens that recalibrates us and like where our focus should be. And there's a great amount of grief that comes with that. And then people have to make a decision. Do I want to continue down this path or do I want to choose to do something else? And it's usually something external outside of them that happens that is so painful that they're forced to make a decision. So when that happens and they embark down the path of, okay, I'm going to clean this up and I'm going to do things differently. When they first enter that space, it's just survival mode. Tell me what I have to do. I will do it. You say jump, I'll say how high, and they'll just run because they want out of pain so bad that they're willing to do anything. And they get it done. Like they do the thing that they need to fix the problem. But then by the time they have settled it or they've built the models or they've put into whatever is in place. It might even be like health and fitness related. It's like, well, you lose the 20, you lose the 30 pounds, and you get your blood pressure back under control. When you finally get there, you're so angry and you're so bitter and resentful. And instead of being grateful that you turned things around for yourself, it's almost like about fucking time that I got here. And I think a lot of people get stuck there. And I share that journey because it takes an immense amount of courage to clean up a mess. And most people won't even look at the mess in their closet. So you have probably picked up that people are close to burnout, are in a loop or in a pattern where I go really hard for a long period of time, I start to burn out, but they never let it get so bad to the point that the pain exceeds the behavior. So they probably taper off a little bit. Mm-hmm. Maybe go on a little vacation, put a Band-Aid on it, chill. And it alleviates the pressure and it lets the steam out of the pot a little bit, just enough to continue to do the same thing that is hurting them. And there will come a point where that doesn't work anymore and they will be at the crossroads. And then they will, if they commit to it, they'll go through a very similar journey. Mm-hmm. I have watched this for like a year straight with every single client who has come into our business. It is like clockwork watching them go through it. Same emotion, same expression, same resentment. It's like right on schedule. I hate this so much. I don't like the way my life is. I don't like what I've created. What do I have to do to fix it? Tell me. I'm a high achiever. I'll run 100 miles an hour and make it happen. Give me a fucking plan and I'll execute the plan. And then they do it. And then they're in a place where they should be stable, but emotionally they're not. And then they are mad as hell. And it's not actually anger. It's actually like deep grief that they just haven't felt the entire time. And then it all bubbles up.
Yeah. It's actually really funny that you're coming in now. So really like the mentor who started my career and really like made me who I am as a coach was here last week from Australia, right? 30 years in the fitness industry, born and raised in Texas, met his wife, a Kiwi, and they now live together in Australia. And he was stateside for 6 weeks. And he's a big proponent of therapy, specifically EMDR therapy, and really getting to like unraveling the bottom, like figuring out like, why do I keep getting into this trauma loop? Like, why do I keep doing this? Like for him, it was, he would achieve a certain level of success and then self-sabotage, achieve a certain level of success, self-sabotage.
Yep.
And I think that's a very relatable topic, like for a lot of women, as far as nutrition, right? Achieve a certain amount of success, backpedal, because a lot of times, like, because of our childhood, we may not feel worthy of that success, or we may not feel worthy of this body or what have you. And we just like, we go back to where our identity is comfortable. Mm-hmm. How did like you going through that journey, right? Because like you've reached extremes like in your career, but also even podcasting. Like you got to a point of losing your voice completely for months, right?
Yeah.
How did that behavior like impact your career?
And
how did that impact your career? But also I'm curious, is like a part that I probably don't know as much about is like, how did that impact like your personal life?
The getting to a place of burnout and the behavior of just like self-sabotage, like being in that loop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it impacted everything. I don't think that behavior ever works in isolation.
No.
And I think that you over-index in certain areas that you maybe feel more comfortable or you feel that you have more certainty in, but it absolutely tornadoed through everything in my life. No. I hit an extreme in the business, outside looking in, very successful, this ambitious woman, had a lot of status, I guess, in like a weird way in like the industry that we were in. And yeah, like physical burnout. Everything was about more clients, more scale, more of everything. I just wanted quicker, better, faster. I also have a tendency to be highly perfectionistic. So you combine more with perfectionism. It was just this like crazy loop. And if you would have met me back then, I would have never admitted I was a perfectionist, because my interpretation of perfectionism was you just won't start. And at that point in my life, I had no issue starting. I would just jump off a cliff and assemble the airplane on the way down. But then I would always tear things up behind me. So I never left anything alone. Some people are so paralyzed that they won't even take action. And I experience that more now than I did a couple of years ago. But I would take action and then I would rip it apart. And I did that with everything in my life. So hit burnout, physical burnout. And around the time I hit burnout, I was like very extreme in my health and fitness. I was like on a mission to just get absolutely shredded. But again, I was on a mission to control everything. I was so out of control that it was, I'm going to control the business and I'm going to control my health and fitness, and I'm just going to be like intense about everything. So I was doing cardio 7 days a week. My training day calories were like 1,400 and my rest day calories were like 1,100. And I was training high volume. I was the leanest I've been in my adult life. I remember looking in the mirror with wicked body dysmorphia. I was like, you're still fat. You need to lose more weight. I had lost maybe close to...
My abs aren't popping today.
Yeah, I was probably 20 pounds down in like 16 weeks. Like I was losing, I think, I don't know what the exact number was. I was losing on average 2.5 to 3 pounds a week and was still more, like quicker, faster, better. I looked like kind of like Skeletor. When I look back at those photos of me, and I lost so much muscle tissue because I was so intense. So all of this is happening with my health and fitness. I'm up every single morning in the gym at 4:00 in the morning to do an hour of fasted cardio, like a savage, just robotic.
Yeah.
To do the next thing, to then go home, to then build the business. And then I lost my voice for 2 months straight. I was put on voice rest. I could only talk for 15 minutes a day. I was going to speech therapy. I had to get throat scopes done. They're like, you might have permanent scar tissue damage from what you've done. Like, I love to teach and I love speaking. And I've had this vision in my mind since I was 16 that I'm going to be barefoot on stage in front of 5,000 people with black hair down to my ass. And I'm going to walk out on stage and everyone's going to be there to like listen to me present. Yeah. And that's been my vision in my mind since I was 16. And all of a sudden, here I am at like barely, I think maybe it was 28 years old, like just turned 28, like within like a 6-month time period. And I'm like losing my voice and I can't talk. I can assure you what I was doing at that point in my life did not exceed the vision of being 16 or like being barefoot on stage. Like it was like I haven't done what I wanted to. I haven't lived out this dream that I have, but I've behaved in such a way that is so extreme that I might have fucked this up for the rest of my life. And in that 2-month period, it like fundamentally changed me as a person. I remember sitting in a car outside a grocery store, and it was so lonely. And I don't think people understand this, and I definitely didn't until I went through it. I was like a month and a half into voice rest. When you can only talk for 15 minutes a day, you go into the grocery store and someone says hi to you and you just smile. You don't even want to say hello back to strangers because that takes like time. If I only have 15 minutes a day and I'm highly intentional about how I use it, I'm basically going to talk to nobody. And at that point, my business was like peak growth. But that 15 minutes a day was like voice notes to my team and to connect with them because we had all of these clients and I had 150 people that were involved with our company. And I remember feeling so lonely. I couldn't talk to friends. You can't call your homies or your family members and be like, let's just shoot the shit for 45 minutes. It was so isolating. I remember sitting in a car.
on that point, like, and I know you can appreciate this, especially like as a business owner, right? Like we go hard and fast for things. And like there's a lot of days, especially as someone who fully remote, we wake up, our only real time of like seeing other human beings is like if we choose to go to a coffee shop or at the gym. And for me personally, like I train at a very private, quiet facility.
Yep.
The most amount of people that I might see in that gym, and I might not know any of them personally or talk to them, is like 5 people. So it's like you might wave at someone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only human interaction that I have for a day.
Yeah.
And so then you compound that, like you understand that loneliness. You understand that feeling of like, it's been a week and you look back at your week and you're like, fuck, I haven't seen anyone this week.
Mm-hmm.
And then you compound that and you can't talk.
Yeah.
Brutal.
You're used to calling your friends like at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm done. I don't have to deal with clients or like team or business or whatever it is. And then you call your friends.
Yeah.
And you go for a drive or, you know, you FaceTime somebody or you call your parents and you talk to them. And all of that was just like gone.
Yeah.
And I was a month and a half deep into no communication. And I have one friend and like, God bless her soul. And this fundamentally changed who I will let into my life after this interaction. She was the only person. She would call me and she would talk to me on the phone and I would text her back. And we would talk on the phone for like 45 minutes or an hour. And she would just like talk and she would read my text and she just talked at me. And I couldn't reply, but I would send like GIFs and like LOL. And if I thought it was legitimately funny, like she talked at me and I texted back. And it like changed my understanding of certain people. I was like, you love me for me.
Yep.
Like, well, that's going to make me cry. You showed up at like a time in my life where who the fuck wants to be on the phone with somebody talking for 60 minutes straight while they just text you back? But like you're here because you love me and you care about me and you don't give a shit about the money or the business or what everybody else perceives me to be. Yeah. And she was so cool. And she did that like the entire time. And we had some of our most hilarious conversations during that period.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Extine?
Yeah.
Right? That's, yeah.
Yeah.
A friend and a former client like reached out a while back or we were talking and I was like, you know, hey, are you seeing anyone? You know, because like I knew she'd been single for a while. I knew she was dating here and there, but she's just in a season of being a lot more selective, a lot more intelligent with like how she's approaching that. And she's like, well, yeah, actually I have a date on Thursday and this is like a Tuesday. And she goes, but her ex-husband who she has a son with, and then her adult children were going through like some mental health crises. Mm. And she's like, I think I might cancel. And I was like, why? Why would you do that? She's like, well, this man doesn't need to like walk into this season of my life. Mm. And I was like, what do all 3 people that you just talked about like have in common? It's like, they're all adults. You can be there for them, but you can't save them. Mm. Just like you can't make this decision for this man that you're seeing, that he shouldn't have to fall victim or whatever you want to say in your head to like keep him at arm's length and push him away. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, like a couple weeks later, she's like, you remember that guy? It's like, yeah. And like, she sent me like a clip and like, of course, like a well-rounded, grounded man like showed up and he's like, oh, okay. Like, and it's just like, and he was able to be there for her. He was able to provide that space like for her. And it's like, whether it be intimate or not, like just like Extine showed up for you, right? It wasn't intimate. It's a friendship. And she didn't care. She just showed up. Mm-hmm. but we have to be willing to allow people to show up.
Mm-hmm.
It's super important.
I talked about this recently, and I think sometimes the seasons and the moments that we need love the most are the times we're the most ashamed to ask for it.
Yep.
It is crippling. Like when you actually need it, true need, it is the hardest to ask for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the most difficult to receive it. But when someone gives it willingly, you just soften and just melt because you don't have the courage to ask for it. But when someone shows up and just gives it, there's like a different level of appreciation there.
100%.
And I think our responsibility as individuals is to evolve into the person who it's like, I can feel the shame and ask for support anyways because I'm showing up for me. Being in, like, as you would say, like intentional and like purposeful and like responsible to myself. Mm-hmm. Hey, I need this. But it's really cool when you have people who show up for you in a way that you didn't know you needed. And then once you've been through that with somebody, you have a new reference point for it. And you're like, man, this is commitment. Mm-hmm. Like this is love. This is somebody, you know, showing up in the times that you need it the most. Mm-hmm. And it gives you a new reference point. And how can you be that for others? And then also how can you ask for that in the future? Yeah. If you're ever in the event that you need it again.
Yeah. I recently experienced something. I got pretty sick back in August. And like, if I care for you, like I show up and I show out like big time. And I got really sick and someone was like, hey, like, what do you need? And I was like, nothing.
Oh, good stuff.
Nothing. And they were like, no, you don't get to do that. Like, you don't get to show up and show out for me and then not accept anything in return. And I was like, watch me. God. And then I was like, fine. I was like, this is what I need. But it was hard.
Like, 100%.
I was like, what to do with my hands?
But before you ask whatever you're going to ask me, I laugh when you say that because I find we attract mirrors, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody's a mirror to us in their own way. And when I look at you, your mirror to me in some ways is that I think you have a very big heart. You've been through a lot of pain in your life and you've experienced a lot and you care so deeply and you are such a beautiful soul and you are also hyper independent. You show up for other people and you love them and you will be there for them and you would move mountains to support them. But you also, in all of where your heart deepened in your life, also created, there's a lot of pain that led you to that. You care as much as you do because of how much pain that you went through. And that pain also created hyper independence. And I won't ask for my needs to be met and I won't rely on anybody else. I will show up and leave people better than I found them, but I don't maybe feel worthy or deserving of it. So my chuckle about that was like, of course you did that. You would show up for someone else if they were sick. And you would be hell-bent for leather that nobody knows what you need when you are sick because you would just figure it out. Mm-hmm.
Whew. Congratulations. You're the first person to make me cry on my show.
Did you really think it was going to go any different?
Probably not.
It's powerful, though. And for anybody listening, it's like... we wear independence like a badge of honor, and all it is armor. Yep. You just armor up your whole life. Yep. You weren't met at different points in your life when you were vulnerable and you need it the most. And whatever your perception was of that, right? I think sometimes when we're like little kids, people can only meet us at the level they meet themselves. And like our parents also struggle. Yeah. They're not okay. They have their own emotional stuff they need to work through. And they don't show up in the ways that we need when we're little, because when you're little, all you have is needs. And if they're not met, consistently and with like gentle, loving care, you put on layers of armor as you go through life. But you know what it feels like, and you remember what it feels like for someone to not be there for you. So you show up for other people, but then you never let anybody remotely close to you. It's like, I will give, but I will not receive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is our like work as individuals, and that independence is just armor.
Mm-hmm.
And taking it off is like the scariest shit you'll ever do in your life. It's absolutely terrifying. Because if I take it off, then like I am no longer protected in the event that you disappoint me. And the disappointment reminds me of past experiences that I've been through. It takes so much courage to soften. And I say that as a woman who like, I am less masculine now than I ever have been.
Yeah.
But there was points in my life where I was so armored up and I was so masculine. And I can see how that put up walls and barriers and distance between me and other people. And maybe women looked up to me who needed strength, but I pushed men away that could have loved and been soft to me because they didn't know how to be in that space with me. Because I was very masculine and very dominant.
Yeah.
And I've softened, but holy hell has it taken courage to soften.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're like naked walking out on the streets.
Yep.
Especially, and like men have their own version of it, of what it's like to soften for you in front of like a woman or your male friends. And women have their version of it as well. It's terrifying to like truly express yourself in front of somebody else and not feel shame for your experience of what you're going through. So I think my whole point in that is like, if you're listening to this and you are independent and you have armored up, the entire conversation of what we had in the first half of like getting to a point where you truly change your life and you're not burnt out and you're not self-sabotaging and you're not doing all these things that hurts you, like you will never resolve that until you soften.
Yeah.
And softening will be the scariest shit you do.
I don't have this written down, but it brings up something that's come up a lot in my life recently is like something that I've come to realize, like, as I've finally like gotten my thyroid fixed and like been able to be a lot more present, have the energy to like function in day-to-day life is, you know, to your point of softening as a man to a woman, right? And then a woman softening to a man and in relinquishing, letting that armor off is, at the end of the day, is it empowers both people to be their best self. And, you know, as someone who's grown a lot in their faith, and like you look at like the Bible and you look at traditional marriage and in that way, like it is equal. It's just a different kind of equal than what's been portrayed in like society and culture for the last how many ever years. Because there is, like, I read this not too long ago, is like men were created for this plane, right? Like the physical, like give us a job, let us go work, and we will work 12, 14, 16-hour days on repeat and do it again and again and again and again. And women are far more in tune with that spiritual side. And I think like that duality between like a man and a woman who has done the work and they come together and they like form that alliance, like as one, like that is, not only is it like beautiful, but it is, I think that's when we witness like the highest like form of people.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's not even have you done the work, but it's like maybe you've done some work, but you come together and you're willing to do the work together because there is layers you peel back as that you can't access on your own. We heal in community.
Yeah.
And we heal through expression. And your ability to sit with somebody and fully express yourself and what you're going through and have that person just be there and love you through it. That's so cathartic.
100%. One of the things that drives me absolutely like up a tree, like as a man in our culture today, is like so many women run around. They're like, I'm healed. And I'm just like,
yeah.
Nope, you missed the mark. Like you've done a lot of work and like you just said, like you've healed to a point.
Oh yeah.
But wait until like you are in an intimate relationship or you find a really good quality friend and they hold up that mirror and you're going to be like, oh, okay, now it starts.
So true. You know what else I think? It's like you've healed up into a point. I think we have really deeply ingrained patterns of behavior and beliefs in us from what we experienced. And as you heal and you work through stuff, those same patterns still present in your life. You just have a different relationship with them. I notice that there are still things that come up that I used to do 3 to 4 years ago. I just have a different understanding.
Yeah.
And I make different decisions today with them. Maybe it's not as extreme as it used to be. Like I was so emotionally unavailable, right? And wanted love, very like anxious avoidant, the worst kind. I'm not one or the other. I'm both. Terrible. So I would want love and then would find myself in a relationship with somebody where it's like, okay, I want this and I'm excited. And then something would happen and I would immediately like pull back and become super avoidant. And then I would just start this like vicious cycle and I was in it. And I notice still to this day at times behavior where that shows up, but I'm quicker to catch it and I'm quicker to ask questions and be curious and I communicate it. It hasn't fully gone away, but my relationship with it has changed significantly. Yeah. Will it ever go away? I don't know. Maybe in 20 years from now. There's a part of me that highly doubts it. I just don't think I will be controlled by it or it will be so, oh, I'm just living this on autopilot.
And I think also like when we talk about romantic relationships, like as a man, like recognizing that pattern in you and accepting it and like understanding it and being like not allowing your behavior to trigger me and just being able to sit there with it and be like, okay, all right. I did something that triggered this and like, I can recognize this. Like I can hold space for this. Like, and I can, walk through this with you, then instead of like getting so massively triggered and like going to one of my autopilot trigger behaviors of like, well, I'm just going to be an asshole or this, that, or, whatever it may be.
But we attract people that are mirrors to heal.
Yeah.
Because like, it's one thing to be like, oh, I can recognize that this behavior is yours and it isn't about me. But we often find ourselves in relationships with people where that behavior very much does trigger some deep stuff in you. And can you come together and do you have the commitment to that person and your own evolution and the responsibility to yourself and like who you say you want to be and the life that you want to build? And then will you work through that with yourself and with other people?
Yeah. So this kind of actually ties together. How are kind of rewinding back to that point, right? Of like the burnout, the loss of voice. And I know that's a couple years removed and I'm sure this has evolved along the way, is like, how has that changed like your approach to this next season?
Yeah. Life is funny. I think that you go through loops, pain loops.
Yeah.
And the pain loop gets shorter and more intense every single time until you are finally, you hit that crossroads where like, it just hurts so good. You don't ever want to do it again. So I've had a lot of those, and I've had to clean up a lot of mess, and I've had to feel so much over the course of the last couple of years that I feel like I'm at a place now that I am slower to make decisions. And not because I am scared to make a decision, but because I want to make an informed decision. Yeah. And I've never been like that. I was reckless, ripped the brakes out of the car. Fuck it. I'll figure it out. 2 speeds, full on, full stop has been my entire life. And I've learned so much through trial by fire. This next season of my life, I don't need to continue to learn trial by fire. I know that there will be some, like it's going to happen, and there's probably going to be some inevitability of that at different points because that's life. But I want to be the person who slows down, asks questions, is curious, doesn't take things at first conversation or first round of information. Do I truly understand this? Is this a yes or a no for me? If it's a no, how come it's a no? Is it even possible for this to be a yes? Like I want to slow down and I want to think through what I'm doing. And it feels totally different to me because it's not in my head with mental gymnastics. It's not, you know how some people get very stuck in their head. It's like they just ruminate and they run. And what about this? And what about that? And they overthink. It doesn't feel like that. It's, I want the information. I want to think through it. I want to be curious. I want to ask questions. And then I will make an informed decision because I'm going to make one move that moves me 10 feet forward instead of 10 little steps that take me in multiple different directions. And I'm exhausted by the time I get to the same point. So I think going through the burnout and the cleanup and the restructuring of my entire life and letting go of so much moving into this next season, I will move in a way that looks slower, and it is actually just swift.
Mm-hmm. What role has therapy played in your health and fitness? You kind of touched on this a little bit, like full circle back, like when you were in full control mode.
Yeah.
How has that evolved for you? Like, how is going through therapy? How has that evolved your health and fitness over the past couple of years?
Yeah. I don't like traditional therapy. I think that the majority of therapists and practices out there do not support change. If you want to talk to me about change your habits, change your behavior, and do this, useless. I don't want to talk to you because that's not going to solve my issue. If the formula to change is like, who do I have to be? What do I have to do in order to have the thing? Majority of therapy is like, what do you have to do to have a different outcome? Who do I have to be? Well, in order for me to be someone different, I'm probably going to have to feel through what I've been avoiding for a long time. So I don't like traditional therapy because I think a lot of it bypasses the true feeling of something. It's a moment comes up, I start talking about something, I feel myself getting angry and overwhelmed. I need to drop the story of this happened and this is why I'm upset. And I just need to drop into my body and I need to feel that. I need to fully express it and I need to feel the emotion that I've been burying. And if I do that enough times, I will let the steam out of the pot and my relationship with it will fundamentally change. Mm-hmm. So I had gone to therapy before, and yes, I got better in some ways, but it didn't fundamentally shift me. Mm-hmm. What fundamentally shifted me was like expression with people that I was close to and felt safe with, which really there was one person that it started with, and then over time there grew to be 2. And I have about 2 people in my life that I'm like very Like if I'm going to cry, like it's all coming out and we're going to work through it. And like they're so loving and gentle with me about it. So that feeling through things has helped me more than like traditional therapy. So if I would answer that, it's like, how has feeling through my stuff changed my relationship with health and fitness? Immensely, because my health and fitness was also a mirror for a long time of how chaotic I was.
Yeah.
Overtrain, undereat, go through the cycle, do it in a way that was super unsustainable, crash and burn, and just hit it on repeat. When I went through cleaning up and restructuring my life, I hated going to the gym. I worked out maybe 4 times a week, and it was like pulling teeth to get me to go to the gym. I went from cardio 7 days a week, training 6 days a week, like extremism to...
And loving it.
Yeah. And I would be damned if you made me go to the gym for 4 days a week. But it was really helpful for me because I kicked and screamed for a little bit. And then it was like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym 4 times a week for 45 to 60 minutes. I'm going to do minimum effective dose to get the results that I want. And I've become significantly stronger over the last year and healthier. And I moved away from, oh, I need to diet and I need to be leaner and I need to look like this. And it was like, can we just get hella strong and just like pack on some muscle for a little bit? And can we eat normal and not be in a calorie deficit? I got some health stuff I think I need to work through right now with like my heart rate and like heart rate variability, and just like my recovery is pretty trash. And I think there's something else maybe hormonally going on with me that I'm getting lab work done for. But I just don't feel the same towards fitness. I still have some goals that I would like to accomplish in the new year, but I will approach them from a totally different place.
Okay. Outside of the labs and the heart rate and that stuff, which fascinates me because like that's my happy nerdy place. Like
you're like, ooh,
labs and heart rate and
yep.
all that stuff. I don't even remember when it was. It was probably, my guess is 6 months ago. You were kind of posting a little bit more about fitness, and like, you know, I made a comment. It was just like, hey, like you're looking really strong. As someone who's formerly run a health and fitness coaching company, been involved in the health and fitness space, and now you coach coaches who impact thousands of people's lives. How has that really impacted you? Because it's something that I preach about a lot. Like it's come up on this show a lot, like with guests, is one thing that I've kind of come to a point is like women need to, and realistically men too, but this show is for women, is like they need to spend an entire year at maintenance calories and just getting strong as fuck.
Don't disagree.
And it sounds like you've like essentially done that. Like, and you're very close to hitting that year mark.
It'll even be longer than that.
How is that impacting you now? Like, how is that in itself like impacting your viewpoint of like health and fitness? How freeing does that feel for you? Like in social settings, traveling?
Yeah. By the time this is all said and done, I will probably have gone almost 2 years with maybe one period where we tried to diet me down. I lost about like 12 to 15 pounds, and then my body just like bucked and got stuck. And it was like, this is strange. Like I can't break past that point. And I think that's because of other issues. So it was like, fuck it. I'm just going to train. I'm going to eat at maintenance. And it's been so healthy.
Yeah.
I love training again. I love going to the gym and hitting PRs and being super strong. I can do like 195, not even 205 pound stiff leg barbell deadlift right now. I'm like, it's so stoked to be able to go in and like lift heavy weights. And I love training. And my business partner, Farshad, he does my training program for me. I train 4 times a week. I'm strong as hell. I like the way that he programs and does things for me because I haven't done certain movements in maybe like 5 or 6 years, picked up to do like a military barbell press, shoulder press. And I was like, just curious, what will I hit? The last time I did it, I would have been early 20s and I could never break past like 65 pounds. And I found it incredibly difficult. And I did it maybe a month ago and I hit 85 pounds for reps. And I haven't done that exercise for like at least 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is awesome. You can't do that if you're constantly dieting and doing cardio and eating in a deficit and, oh, I have to be lean by this time period and like restricting food. It's so freeing to get to a place where I train because I like to. My relationship with food is so much healthier than it's ever been.
Yeah.
When I do go to diet and lose weight, it'll be like the last hurrah of I would like to lose 30 pounds next year and get to like 140, sustain it, and then go through like a building phase. So I'm like much leaner and I can put on more tissue. But holy fuck, women need to eat more food. You need to do less dieting and you need to eat more food and you need to train harder. And it's so difficult because we want to be lean.
Yeah.
We want to look toned. We want to feel beautiful. And like, I would be lying if I said at this point, like, I don't always feel that way because I am 30 pounds heavier than I want to be.
Yeah.
And sometimes I see photos of me when I was much leaner, even like a year and a half ago. And I'm like, I want to get back there. And I think as women, like we want to feel beautiful so bad. And we're so fucking short-sighted about how we approach it.
Yeah.
And like you're beautiful regardless, but I get the feeling as somebody who we want to wear certain clothes and we want to look good in them. And we want to feel good taking our clothes off and being naked. We don't want to see like a pudgy face when we look at photos. Like we're just so fucking critical of ourselves. And it makes it so difficult to try to sell someone the idea of eat more calories, diet less, lift heavy, and take care of your health. And I swear to God, if you do those things consistently, you will eventually be able to lose the weight. It'll be really easy for you to do it and you will keep it off and you'll be so grateful that you went that path instead of like the chronic crash dieting.
Yeah. Well, cause like, so what I call it is like what you're talking about is like, if you spend this time, if you build that foundation and you diet, and like you said, right? So, okay, you've built the foundation, you want to pull off 30 pounds. Then from there, you're going to build back to maintenance, build some lean tissue. And what I really like to say to a lot of people is like, if you take this approach, and everybody's approach is going to be different depending on your past history. So what Nat has broken down is like, hey, very disordered past, like a lot of, you know, very like type A tendencies, 7 days of cardio, 6 days of training, extreme caloric restriction. And what she's currently doing is not only is she building a foundations, but she's repairing a lot of mentors have said this is like, look, like you can run up a balance on your internal credit card, but eventually you're going to pay it back and you're going to pay it back in interest. And like, that's what you're working through. But if you do really take the time, build the foundation, build the healthy, as you diet, you build back up, and then you diet one more time. And you have what you call, to me, is your forever physique, where at that point you can maintain very healthily at a certain position. And let's just say you have Mexico coming up or a wedding coming up. You can very healthily from that point diet for a few weeks, be really lean, be really happy in your skin and walk into that vacation, then go back into maintenance calories at your vacation, look your best, but also have a lot of food freedom.
Yeah.
Not terrified of what's the blowback that's about the impending doom that's going to come.
Yeah. But again, that takes courage to be willing to do it because it is counterintuitive to everything we are told and what we believe. And if we use health and fitness and our body as a vehicle for self-worth, that is such a difficult sell. I have had such a disordered relationship with like health and fitness throughout my entire life. Like this isn't new news. This is just the most recent iteration of it. I used to be a heavy smoker when I was a teenager. I smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day.
Wow.
Yeah. Got so good. Got on the elliptical at like 18 my heart rate was 190.
Yes.
I was like, I'm going to die. I was terrified.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I got to get in shape. And I saw photos of myself from my graduation and I looked like Quasimodo. I was so hunched over and kyphotic and just had horrible posture. My back was so weak. My upper arms were the size of my wrists. Like I was just this frail, tiny little creature that also had a horrible like cardiovascular system.
Yeah.
So I end up training. I get in shape. I put on some muscle. It is what it is. But again, like I'm early 20s and I get a bit neurotic about it. And at that point, I was so tiny and I was probably like 135 pounds soaking wet. But like if you looked at me, I looked like I was 110. Like I was so itty bitty. So I was like, I want to build. So then I built and then I leaned out and then I got obsessive with food and cardio and being lean. And I went through that cycle. Then I hired a coach. She put me through like a 1.5 year long building phase. I went from 140 to 180 at the peak of my building phase. I swear to God, anyone who does like a building phase goes through like a terrible bulk where you put on too much body fat.
Yeah.
You're strong as hell, but like you like you can't breathe walking up a flight of stairs and you don't feel good. I went through that. I leaned out. That bulk forever changed my physique though. Like I've kept so much tissue from doing that.
Yeah.
And then I went through the like insane cycle again. So like this isn't new. This has just been the longest period of time that I haven't tried to diet, but I'm fundamentally different as a person than I was the last time I went through this. So like I've lived it full well. You want to know how I write such good copy and teach people how to do it for fitness coaches? I am the ideal client. It's right up here.
Yep. I've done it. What would you say? So I pulled this literally from your stories today. What would you say is like your greatest fear right now?
Right now.
Yeah.
What is my greatest fear right now? It's shifted in the last couple of days, but I will share it because it is the most recent and I currently don't have one to plug in its place. I haven't had enough time to find the next thing I'm scared of. But I've had a pattern with money at different points in my life. And this is like deep-rooted family stuff. And the pattern is the same with everything, right? Lose a bunch of weight, sabotage, or do it in a way that's unsustainable and then like create the loop, make a bunch of money or like build a business, tear it down, do something else. So like this isn't new. This is just like a different iteration of it. But the money one really sits close to home for me more than the health one does because of various things I've been through. So early 20s, got really far into debt trying to build my business, 30K in the hole, had to pay it all back. Did that. Made a bunch of money, had an unexpected bill hit that was like beyond my control and it wasn't frivolous spending or something like that. Lose all my cash, start over again. Build a 7-figure plus business on 10% profit margins, make all of this money, tear it down, have to start over again. When I left Canada, I never paid myself out of TVAC, the current company I have, for the first like 3 years. Pretty much like 4 years straight, I didn't pay myself out of the business. I never took the distributions out. I never was like, here's the profit, I'm going to take it. So I hoarded all of that money in a bank account. When I moved to the States a year ago and I had to close out my books in Canada, I had to take all the money because you can't close out your company without pulling all the profit out of it. So all of the profit that I had made for like 4 years prior, I had to pay myself in one tax year, which put me in the highest tax bracket. And I pretty much gave all of my money to the government to leave Canada. So I had worked my ass off for 4 years, built this business, hit burnout, cleaned it up, did all of this stuff. And then all of the money that was left over in profit, gone. It gets better. Then I come to the States. I'm dual citizen. Nobody told me that I had to file taxes in the States my entire adult life. So I'm behind my entire adult life filing to the IRS. I was born in the States. I grew up in Canada. And then I never filed taxes here, but that's a requirement if you're a US citizen. So I just paid all my money to Canadian taxes. And then the IRS goes, you haven't paid your taxes here your entire adult life and you're backdated. And it gets better. There's something called FBAR. For those of you who don't know what this is, it's foreign banking account. If you are a US citizen and you put money in a bank account outside of the States and it exceeds $10,000, you have to file every year and claim that you have money outside of this account. The fine for not doing it is $10,000 per account that you do not claim. I did not know this. So I find out all this information. I hire a lawyer. They had to go through 7 years of bank statements of mine from accounts I shut down in Canada to figure out what was the total fine due. And the total fine to get, if they were to fine me, I'm doing a streamlined program to get into compliance right now with the IRS, but the total fine that I'd be liable for is $544,000. $500,000. You would bankrupt me.
Yeah.
So what is my fear? My fear was I was about to get hit with a $500,000
Jesus.
fine. And it's okay now, like, hired the lawyer, okay, we're going to do this. We have a plan to get in the streamlined program. But like that, like I've been absolutely fucking blue in the, like white, green in the face the entire year.
Yeah.
Like that has been looming over my head. I feel so free right now. If you would have asked me this a week ago, I'd have been like, I'm going to be bankrupt. That's my fear. And it's not as much now, but shit, man. Like and like, this is why I'm so passionate about talking about like cleaning up your mess, killing the cockroaches in your life, being informed in your decision making. Like when I said I want all the information and I want to move swiftly, it comes back to this. I have just repeatedly been reminded over the course of the last 24 months to slow down, think, ask questions, and make informed decisions. And like, I didn't know some of those things. And like, man, could I have 18 asked like, hey, do I have to file taxes in the States? But like no freaking 18-year-old living in a different country is asking that.
No.
So, but again, a beautiful example. I talked to someone recently and I think this is really profound and it would apply to like even women in their weight loss journey. Money we make through self-abandonment never stays. Weight that we lose through self-abandonment never stays off. When I look at the last like 4 to 5 years of my life, I've made a decent amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I sacrificed my health and my sanity. I did things that maybe like I didn't agree with. I never did anything that was like unethical or was like out of integrity, but like I didn't wake up and be like, is this responsible to me and what I'm trying to create in my life? Like it was just autopilot. And there was so much self-abandonment. And I have kept none of the money that I have made. And I had a moment a week ago where I'm like, I am 30 years old. I just moved to a new country. I just spent the last 24 months of my life cleaning up my life from the first fucking 28 years of it. And I'm standing here with nothing to show for it except for skills. And I'm so grateful for those skills, but I very much had a moment of, I've worked like 12 to 16 hour days for 5 years straight. I have like learned and evolved and worked my ass off and made so many sacrifices. And then to kind of stand there and like, I just turned 30 in September and you're like, you get hit with, okay, this is what you're going to have to pay. And you just paid to leave your country. It's like, that was hard.
Yeah. So
my fear was the finances, but I think the even bigger fear was like, God, is this going to keep happening? Like where you work so hard and you build up and then something happens that just like wipes it all out to zero. And I don't fear that now because this is very much the cleanup of who I was. Because I look at what I've created since then over the last year and like we're cool. Like the future's very bright for what we're doing. And this is just the remnants of what existed in the past. But I share that because shit, what I would have given to have somebody like maybe crack a little joke about it who'd been through worse, been like, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And this is just lessons learned and reminders. And it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong now. It's just like, this is cleanup. And this is what happens when you tornado through your life and you self-abandon. And then you make the decision at the crossroad that you don't want to be that person anymore. And it is a long fucking road to get back to homeostasis.
I think the biggest thing, like, is like you said, is the skills, because you can't take those away.
No,
you can't.
You can't take them away, but that's a really hard sell for your ego.
Yeah. All right, wrapping this up, the last question I always ask, given the name of the show: how are you living your life intentionally in this season?
What do I value? What do those values look like? And am I closing the gap between what I say and what I live? And it is just like that simple to me. If I say I value responsibility, what is responsible to me, to the people who work for me, to our clients, to my future, to who I say I am? And then making a decision that reflects that. If I say I value love, how can I show up and be loving to myself and to others and in my interactions with people? Just very present and aware with who do I want to become? What does being her look like? And then am I living that every single day? And I'm not perfect with it, but like, goddamn, that is my North Star right now.
I think a really important point to that, and what I appreciate about how you said it, is you mentioned yourself first. How do I love me? And you know this as a coach to women, is far often is women will self-abandon and love everyone around them. And they think that that is a badge of honor. They think that it is selfless, when in reality it's extremely selfish. Because if you can't love yourself, like, you can't love those around you, even your children, at full capacity. Because they're watching and they know. They know when you're not loving you. Like, they can feel it. Amazing episode. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.